What is something you used to do as a kid and only realized years later to be extremely inappropriate? Being a girl, I got a lot of baby dolls when I was young. This being the late 80s and early 90s, a lot of them were pretty fucking hideous. So I did what any girl would do in that situation. I scribbled all over their faces with red marker, then hosted a public execution for them for the crime of being ugly. I'd hang them with yarn and scrunchies around their necks, then buried them in the back of my closet to be forgotten about. I had my cuter stuffed animals and dolls watch, so they'd know what happened to ugly people. I was bullied a lot. Not me, but still relevant. I was at my uncle's 50th birthday party this summer. The morning after, about 40 people came back over for breakfast. We were all hung over outside, and my 10-year-old cousin started yelling happily. We all looked over, and he was on the fence, cheering happily because his pee was split into two streams, leaving wet marks on the wood. My uncle told him to stop, but he didn't. He kept obnoxiously cheering and telling everybody to look, so my uncle walks over and whispers something to him. The pee slowly stopped, like when you put a kink in a hose. My uncle explained to him that he was basically announcing to almost 50 people that he masturbated the night before. He stayed in his room until everybody left. It was so cringy. Oh god, I remember this and cringed just thinking how awkward it was for my parents to watch. When I was little, about age 6 through 9, I was obviously out of the loop on anything sexual, especially masturbating. We had one of those electric brushes used to massage your scalp. I used it while watching TV with my parents, right in the crotch area. I used to cover myself with a pillowcase or something. I guess I always knew it was kind of wrong. The worst of all, everyone could hear the loud buzzing coming between my legs. Not really inappropriate, but more extremely dangerous. My dad had this old station wagon from the late 1970s throughout most of my childhood, and I thought it was amazing. It was big and there was so much room to play in the back. Sometimes I would put on puppet shows for the cars behind us in traffic when we stopped at a red light. As dangerous as it was for a small child to be loose in the back of a station wagon without a seatbelt, I used to play an even more dangerous game sometimes. I would lay across the top of the back seat and try to remain as stiff as possible. When my dad would brake or accelerate, the momentum would cause my body to fall either on the cushioned seat in front of me or on the old couch cushions my dad had put in the back. I thought it was so much fun to roll and fall one way, then got back up and fall the other, and I would play this game a lot. It wasn't until years later that I realized how dangerous that was. I was a kid just openly playing a falling game in the back of a station wagon. Luckily, my dad was a great driver and we never got into any accidents, but if we did, I would have gone flying out of the front or back windows and probably would have been killed instantly. I was about 7 years old. I had never seen black people before. I grew up in rural parts of Canada, and my father took me to Montreal to see museums and go see an IMAX film. So we ended up driving to the nearest underground metro, a subway station, to park there and take the metro to the city. And then I see black people everywhere. Holy shit. So I just keep quiet and follow my dad inside the train. We're surrounded by black men and women sitting next to us and standing too. And then I ask my dad, why are there so many black people? Are we taking the train to Africa? My dad's face turns bloodshot red, and a black woman looks at me smiling. My dad is mortified, and we got off the next stop. He still likes to tell the story at family gatherings. I was 12. My older female babysitter, who was 14 at the time, came over to basically put my baby sister to sleep, and then wait while my parents went on a date night or whatever. When it got close to my bedtime and she asked if I wanted a shower or a bath, to go get it ready for me, and I said bath. So she got up, and several minutes later, I hear her call, "It's ready." So I went into the bathroom, and she was in the tub already with her bra and underwear on, and she asked if it was okay if she joined. I said something like, "Only if I get my swim trunks on." And so when I got back in the tub with her, we started playing around, splashing, and giggling, and this just so happened to be one of the first times I got a boner. As soon as I noticed, I got really embarrassed, and then she saw it through the water. And then a few moments later, I see her panties come out from the tub water. And we felt each other up in the tub every time she came over after that. We never actually had full-on sex, but man, did she love giving oral. Babysitter was there for my baby sister, which my parents didn't exactly want a 12-year-old and a newborn at home alone, and I had a little crush on the sitter. LOL. As a kid, me and my best friend used to play something we called the money game. First, we made a bunch of fake money from green paper. Then we put on really slutty clothes that she supplied, just mini skirts and stuff. I never owned any stuff like that. And pretended like my 4-poster bed was a boxing ring and we would strip for an imaginary crowd of men. Then pretend like they were flinging $1 bills at us. We couldn't have been older than 9. No clue how it came about, but I'm pretty sure it was her that brought it to the table. My family, though liberal, was a bit closer to the middle than hers. It was purely for fun and not sexual at all. I just remembered recently a story I used to tell people that I remember thinking was really interesting to everyone. The whole story was literally just, I used to know a kid that picked his butt, picked his nose, picked his ear, and then ate it. I would tell people that from the ages of like 6 to 10, I'm guessing, hoping it wasn't longer, and just remembered it now. I never even knew anyone that did that. I made it all up. The combination of the fact that I was lying and that I thought it was a genuinely interesting story back then makes me cringe to this day. One time, my friend and I were playing downstairs in the basement, and we were like 5 years old and didn't really understand private parts, just strangers and stuff shouldn't see them. Well, my friend and I weren't strangers, we were friends, so sometimes playing, we just take our pants and underwear off and continue playing. We didn't really look at each other's junk and butt, but we sort of just went on with our playing. I guess we thought in the privacy in our own home, we could get as nude as you wanted. I guess, like the Fight Club, you never talk about the Fight Club. So we never mentioned it at all. One day, I took off my stuff and started playing and noticed he wasn't doing the same thing. I asked him about it and he didn't give any response, so I put my pants and underwear back on and I said, I sort of thought we were going to do that. And he pulls down his pants and underwear and sprints upstairs to my mom and cries saying that I forced him to take off his pants and underwear. My mom got super pissed, although when she was my age, she probably did the same thing and I got in huge trouble. I was mad at him for a while, but we became friends again. He came over to my house, we started playing again, and about 20 minutes in, he whips down his pants and underwear and slaps his ass hard, runs up to tell my parents I forced him to pull down his pants, and then I slapped his butt. My mom was out, so he told my dad, and at that age, I was usually afraid of my dad. He was tall and usually yelled and got mad a lot, and guess fucking what happened? I was trying to say something, but he kept yelling, and being 5, I just started to cry, and my friend went home and never spoke to him again. Years later, as I began to go into puberty and stuff, and know what masturbation was, my parents sometimes questioned my sexuality. Too shy to ask out any girls since I didn't really have a girl to be with, they thought I was gay for a while because of this incident. I had to tell them that I wasn't, my brother knows, and always makes fun of me for this. Scrambled memory of this. I was in the 6 to 8 years old range at an oyster roast. My mom said to a friend of hers, they're probably just talking about their penises like men do, while looking over at my dad and a group of his friends shucking oysters, drinking, and laughing. After that, I would always walk up to my dad when he was out working outside or staring off into the distance, leaning up against his pickup truck bed at the end of the day, and start talking about my penis. He'd laugh or say, oh yeah, kiddo. But one summer, I had to spend the days at his business and walked up to him talking to a well-dressed male customer. So, naturally, I told that guy about my penis. I remember saying, and when I squeeze real hard, it turns purple. What about yours? Also, I would draw pictures of people shitting on my dad's business stationery and desk calendar. TLDR, talk about my penis to customers, draw pictures of people shitting at work. This will probably be buried now. When I was 9 or 10-ish, I worked out that I didn't have a gag reflex and would show everyone my party trick of being able to insert a long pepperoni sausage down my throat hole until I could close my mouth and then pull it out again. I would show anyone that would watch, including my piano teacher, dinner ladies, my friend's older brother, etc. It wasn't until I was much older that I realized that I was doing something rather sexual and completely inappropriate. I showed my boyfriend when I was much older. I told him I'd been able to do it since I was like 8, and he was rather disgusted. There are a number of acts I can think of. Me and my friends in the neighborhood were known for being little assholes. We would line up pine straw stacks in the road, and when cars would stop, we would throw pine cones at it and run away. I think on one occasion, one of my buddies, in the heat of the moment, didn't notice that he had picked up a rock. Yeah, the guy chased us, but didn't catch us, thankfully. We ding-dong ditched people all the time, although that's fairly common, but being in the South, it wasn't the best idea since so many people owned guns. On 2 occasions, someone came out with a fucking pistol, yet we still did it after the first time that happened. We were dumb. Our neighborhood was also under a lot of construction all the time because it was new and expanding, so a lot of homes were being built. We would go into the homes when the workers had left for the day and fuck up the house. One time, my friend took a shit in one of the bathtubs. On another occasion, we had fucked up the original garage so bad that they had to close that off as another room and build an entirely brand new garage. We would watch Jackass and then break out the old video camera and film stunts and nonsense, like speeding down the street in my golf cart with no governor on it, jumping curbs. Flipped it a number of times, even wore it out so much one time that the engine caught on fire and mildly blew up. This all happened in 5th or 6th grade, but by the time I had hit 7th grade, I noticed how fucked up that shit was. My 3 best friends had no excuse though, since they were all 2, 3, and even 4 years older than me. Edit just thought of another one. One of my friends, let's call him Jack, wouldn't give a shit about his house or what his parents thought. He owned a dog, so his house had a doggy door. When he and his family would go out of town, he would always just say, yeah, if you guys want to chill in the house when we're out of town, that's fine. So me, being the smallest, would crawl through the doggy door and unlock the door, and we would just chill in the house. I remember one time we ordered porn off an on-demand and watched it. Fast forward about 2 weeks, and we were over at Jack's house, and downstairs his mom was opening up mail, and lo and behold, she had received a bill from their provider, and one of the purchases was hard, wet, and ready to fuck. She started screaming at Jack's dad, thinking it was him who ordered it, and we could hear the fight from upstairs. We died laughing. Looking back, she could have just looked at the date of the transaction, but I guess the title overshadowed the small print of the date. This is more being a jackass than extremely inappropriate, but given the nature of this activity, I suppose it's inappropriate. When I was a kid, I used to go down into department stores and play baseball, football, soccer, kickball, anything that involved sending a ball sailing across the aisles with a sheer amount of force. A lot of times, my younger brother or my uncle would partake in these mischievous pickup games. Hey, I needed somebody to pitch the ball to me, right? Kid me would go into a fit of hysterical laughter after smacking a fastball out of the park or sporting goods section and hearing a bunch of shit crash over and housewares across the store. Going, crash! I was the Mark McGuire of department stores. I chuckled to myself looking back on that just now while writing this. As terrible as it was, I still think it's hilarious all these years later. Those poor department store employees. I don't know why I did this, but a friend of mine brought a camera over. We were screwing around with it, taking dumb videos. For some reason, we thought it was hilarious watching a sphincter open and close. So they proceeded to video me, spread eagle, flashing my asshole at the camera, and then clenching and unclenching. We were all laughing our asses off at the time. It wasn't until years later, though, when my dad checked the footage on that camera and found it, that I realized how inappropriate it was. I will never be able to live that one down, LOL. Hopefully not too late for this, because I finally have a good answer to one of these. When I was really young, like 5 or 6, when we used to line up at school in a single file really close together, sometimes I'd find people's hair in my face. For some reason, I used to bite it. Not like to pull it and mess with them, but in secret, just to see what it felt like. For some reason, I liked the texture, and this wasn't a one-time thing. No, I wanted to try everyone's different hairs to see how they felt different. Girls, guys, I can't even remember if I did it to anyone more than once. Mostly just remember trying a bunch of different people. Probably the majority of the class by the end of the year. Also, no one ever caught on that I was behind them munching on their hair, even though the guys specifically had pretty short hair. Eventually, I grew out of it and probably repressed the memory for a while, but then I remembered and realized how fucked up it is. The fact that this username is available confirms my suspicion that I might be alone on this one. And, in case you're wondering, no, I don't have any sort of hair fetish now or keep little hair voodoo dolls, lol. In fact, I find the thought of someone's hair in my mouth quite disgusting now. I was 3, maybe 4, living in Nigeria with my aunt at the time. We were in church, the collection coffer was making the rounds. I was confused. I remember trying to tease out why people were giving their money away. My aunt brushed me off. Quiet, child, they're giving it to God. I didn't understand. I see no God here. She looked at me with horror. I still didn't get it. Probably thought she didn't hear me, so I said it again, louder. I see no God here. I was carried out of the church screaming, there is no God here. Didn't happen to me, but a teacher in middle school told us this story once. They lived in Nebraska and they had a porta potty house or an outhouse. Anyway, it's not the kind of thing that has flooring. It's just the ground and then a hole in the ground to do your business. It's very easy to tip over. Kids would come in at night and tip the porta potty almost every night. My teacher's dad got fed up with it and moved the porta potty back a bit. So that night, when the kids came, they tried to tip it over again, and they only took a step too far and fell in the ditch. I'd have been mad as hell if kids were doing that every night. Trespassing. Lots of it. I wandered onto a hunter's property a ton as a child, often not wearing orange, and we were forced to wear orange hats in the fall or winter because of how close we lived to this area. Both dangerous and rude and careless on my part, seeing as I knew, but didn't really think about it. That guy would have seen hell if I ever got shot at, you know? Later on, trespassing on a clearly marked trespassers will be shot at area, did this multiple times, most of it rather harmless wandering. One time, I was with about 3 other people hanging out along the edge of the property. As we approach the edge, going deeper into the property, this guy comes up to us like he's ready to beat our asses and says we need to get the hell out. Turned out to be a moonshiner, but I didn't find that out until the fall of about 2010 or 2011, when I could smell the mash from a strong breeze nearby. It was like walking through a cloud of Captain Morgan's rum. I went all over that guy's property when I was younger, just not really near where he fermented the mash. Another time, I ended up finding some pot plants in small flower pots, not even close to budding yet, in the woods nearby that place. I debated taking them, but I didn't know what I'd do with them. Probably a good idea. Probably the most notable thing was when I would go out late at night between 10 and 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. and just wander in people's yards. Lots of houses with unused yard space, suburbs, sometimes standing right outside their bedroom windows and shit, taking in the cool night air. It's dead quiet out here at night, so it's kind of refreshing to go outside like that. Overall, probably looked like about a 7 out of 10 on the creeper scale if I were on your property. Those are just the most notable reoccurrences. Many years later, I realized it was kinda creepy and very inappropriate to be doing anything. That's how you get murdered or registered as a sex offender, I think. I must have been 7 or 8. I discovered these cotton things in the cupboard that swelled up massively when you put them underwater. They also had a string attached to them to help you carry them around without getting wet. Fast forward a few days, and one of my older sister's friends is annoying me while we play in the back garden. I hatch a plan. Disappear into the house, only to emerge a few minutes later swinging a soaking cotton thing over my head by the string, connecting perfectly with the guy's face. A few years go by before I realized I clocked him in the face with a tampon. Lived in a rural area, me and my female neighbor girl, this happened until around 2nd grade, used to play in the fresh-cut grass in her parents' big farm field. Her mom had no problem putting both of us in the shower together naked to get all the grass off. The word grass makes this sound way more inappropriate than it actually does. She also used to drop trowel and piss in the woods when we were walking around. I don't think my parents ever knew I moved to a different area, but looked the girl up on Facebook recently and she's gorgeous. And I'm like, why did we move?